and McLean. Get Coach's Corner.
You're listening to the Rugby Coaches Corner podcast with your host, Andy Plimer,
For someone to explain
bringing you up-to-date coaching concepts from the world of rugby,
the distinction between these mandatory
sharing ideas to make the game better.
Okay, welcome to episode number 44 of the Rugby Coaches Corner podcast. I'm your host, Andy Plimer, and joining me today is Andy Evans. Andy is a strength and conditioning consultant based in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. He holds a Bachelor of Human Kinetics and is currently completing a Master's in High Performance Coaching and Technical Leadership, both at the University of British Columbia. He was the head strength and conditioning coach at Rugby Canada from 2013 to 2016 and prepared the senior men's team for the 2015 Rugby World Cup. He recently created Strength School with the goal to establish a way to help any athlete anywhere with affordable and effective training programs. It's a pleasure to have him on the show, so welcome, Andy.
Thanks for having me, Andy. Good to be in touch.
Yeah, no worries. Pleasure to have you, and it's been a while since we've seen each other, but it's good to have a chat. So, what's a bit more detailed description of your journey into the strength and conditioning profession?
When I was going into university, I really enjoyed sports. I was graduating from Walter Murray Collegiate in Saskatoon. So there, played a bit of football, but main sport was rugby. And I just really enjoyed the physical education system in Saskatchewan. Mm-hmm. It may have had a bit more of an American feel that you see in the movies. So my original plan was to become a phys ed teacher.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the coaching aspect and leadership within sports, and I just had a blast in high school, and I've always enjoyed giving back to younger kids, and so my original intent was to be a phys ed teacher. So moved out to Vancouver and did my first 2 years at Simon Fraser University and did my sciences there, and then realized that there weren't many coaching type options if I wanted to stay at SFU. Mm-hmm. So I made the switch to University of British Columbia, where they had a really well-established coaching program and phys ed program, as well as physiology and sports psychology, and really a comprehensive grasp of all those elements that are important for sports. So anyway, ended up doing my human kinetics degree, and I was playing rugby for Douglas Rugby Club, and was really always enjoyed lifting weights and training for sports. So I ended up doing strength and conditioning certification and exercise physiology certification as well. So I got really involved in that. So through that, I ended up doing some cardiac exercise physiology, as well as I was coaching mini rugby and all kinds of involvement with the club and helping the development side of things. Mm-hmm. But then I was getting more into weightlifting and powerlifting for my training for rugby, and ended up getting sidetracked on weekends with certification where I couldn't play rugby on the weekends. So I started competing in weightlifting and powerlifting.
Cool.
So just to keep that competitive edge up. So from there, I just really loved it. So combining weights and rugby is my dream. So through that, started working at a gym where I was there for a number of years, and then Patty Reardon and Brian Erickson showed up in the gym in New Westminster, and they were decentralized athletes training for the 2011 Rugby World Cup.
Yeah.
And they're both fantastic guys, and I saw that they were athletic, but there were a few things that I thought I might be able to help them with, so I just went over and offered to them. And then, they're just awesome guys, so they accepted, no egos, so I was giving them a hand, and through them I ended up meeting the now current head of athletic performance for Rugby Canada, Dr. Matt Barr now. Mm-hmm. So I just made the same offer to him. Let me know if I'm here in the West, like you can't have your hands on with them, so let me know if you need anything. So he took me up on my offer and helped out with the training group and at Vancouver College for women and male athletes training for the Rugby World Cup or the Sevens program for women or 15s for women. So that happened. And then through that, after a little bit, I was offered to do the Canada A squad for the ARCs. That would have been around 2012.
Yeah.
And then before that, I did the 2011 U20s for Canada. Went to the Junior World Trophy in Tbilisi, Georgia.
Yeah.
And so that was a really good moment to see, looking back 7 years or 6 years, what Georgia's done. But that's another conversation. So,
sure.
So from that, started doing ARC and then was offered the assistant position in Langford just before Own the Podium gave funding. And so I took a contract for 3 months in hopes that the funding would be extended. So from there, decided to move my family. My wife was pregnant at the time from Vancouver to Victoria. So it's a good thing my wife trusts me. So it worked out well, and after a few months, Matt moved on to the University of Manitoba, and then I was offered the upgrade in position to the head of strength and conditioning. So, and then before all that rugby bits, I was working with the Canadian women's soccer team a little bit before the 2012 Olympics and Canada's Paralympic wheelchair rugby team.
Okay, cool.
Before the 2012 Paralympics and some other sports at the Richmond Olympic Oval, as well as I've always been doing my own contracting bit work on the side as well. So anyway, that's a bit of a ramble.
She's been busy.
She's been busy, yeah.
For sure. All right, cool. And what about you coaching? What's your kind of philosophy of coaching, and if someone was to watch a session run by you, whether it's in the weight room or on the field, what's some of the things they're gonna see and hear?
Yeah, I really, looking back, I need to have enjoyment in my sessions, whether it's enjoyment through just working hard and having that competitive edge where somebody may want to punch somebody in the mouth. Like some people find that enjoyable, or else it's just goofing around and having fun. But when it's time to do your job, you do it well. So for example, in the weight room, like for the Canadian Sevens team right now, those group of veterans there, they love to have fun, and but when it's time to step on the platform and execute a lift, they do it extremely well. So having that balance of really high quality skill execution and being on task when it's time, but also and then being able to switch off and relax and enjoy the environment and those relationships around you. And if you've watched the men's sevens team as of late, you can tell that they've got that ability again. And I really crave that as a coach, where athletes excel at what they're doing, but they're enjoying everything else around them. And I really see that life's enjoyable with that. So for example, in a rugby session, if we're doing tackling, I want them to tackle extremely well, and you may bring some extra physicality that another individual might not like, and that's when somebody may throw a punch, although that's not really what we're looking for. But as long as you can separate the two, and okay, that was just part of the intensity of the session, and now we're back to being civil teammates or competitors, then I'm all good with that.
Yeah, being able to separate the two is pretty important. I think that's got to be coach-led a lot of the time. Yeah.
And then in terms of values, the things that I really value are integrity in myself and those I'm working with, so that you're the same no matter what. That helps you switch on, switch off, so you're not bouncing all over the place. And then commitment, so that you are able to know what you're about and you're sticking to it and you're reliable then. And then through that, you're going to get better. And then I focused mainly on the enjoyment piece. So in my previous answers, so those are the three things that I try to really incorporate as a coach.
Cool. Awesome. So you recently spent some time in New Zealand for a bit of professional development. And, that's one of the main reasons I got you on the show, was to just chat about your experiences while you were in the Southern Hemisphere. What What's a bit of a general description of your trip?
I was able to do a bunch of things when I was down there, but the initiation behind it is one of my. I have a practicum course in my master's of high performance coaching and technical leadership, and this program is put together by a collaboration between On the Podium, University of British Columbia, Canadian Sports Institute, and Canadian Coaching Association of Canada. So really, they're trying to develop high performance leaders in Canadian sports system. I'm doing mine within rugby. So when I was working with Rugby Canada, where I learned the most was getting into an environment like this and checking things out and speaking to people. And then from there, then I'm able to collaborate with them as well. And they can ask me questions, and then I can refer to them on anything that I need help with. So that was one of the goals, growing my network. So fortunate enough that I coached a number of years with Neil Barnes, the assistant coach with the Chiefs. And Dave Rennie joined us on a tour where we played Samoa and France, and he spent a couple weeks with us. And he extended an offer to me anytime I wanted to come down to just give him a shout, and they'd have me. So I gave them a call, and they had me, and they're just such gracious people. But so I spent 6 days with the Chiefs, and then I spent another 6 days bouncing around Auckland mainly, and spent some time at High Performance Sport New Zealand and the New Zealand Warriors as well.
Right.
So yeah, and then I was able to catch up with some family friends also and experience New Zealand culture a little bit as well, which really is a real huge driver to the success of that nation.
For sure. It sounds like it would have been an awesome experience. And from your time there, what were some of the things that really stood out in terms of the way they look at athlete development and prep for rugby?
The two major objectives that I wanted to look at were the leadership of these organizations and how they establish performances, and then the coaching methodology behind it and how they execute on the day-to-day basis. So yeah, the really consistent themes through the Warriors and High Performance Sport New Zealand and the Chiefs. And what they really focus on is having good people in place to begin with. So they get the right people, right character, and then building capacity in them with a high level of self-awareness. And then through that, with their leaders and their coaches, if you get that and good people who can do those things, then they're able to teach that to the quality individuals that they select into these programs. And that's bred right down to the grassroots level. So that really was really consistent through the New Zealand sports system, whether it's talking with Alex Bowman, the CEO at High Performance Sport New Zealand, to the strength and conditioning coaches with the All Blacks or sports scientists, and then everybody at the Chiefs, whether it's their general manager, their coaches, the players, the professional development manager. They really care about people and performance at the same time, and having a high level of self-awareness where they actually stand and what type of job they're actually doing.
Cool. So with the Chiefs in particular, because they're obviously just killing it in Super Rugby, as are all the New Zealand teams actually. What on the day-to-day stuff that you did with them? How'd that week look in terms of sessions and contact time with athletes and all those kind of things when you were observing? Right.
So yeah, that was pretty fully integrated with the whole program. Just open door, do what I wanted, take as much video, or there's no secrets or anything. So just tons of interaction with the players and all the staff. So I think I sat down and did interviews with about 8 of their staff.
Cool.
And then a number of players. So I'll be releasing those slowly over my blogs and stuff, hopefully. But that really gives a lot of deep insight. And then, so through that, in the coach's office, they all meet together in the same room. So it's highly integrated. So the head of strength and conditioning, assistant strength and conditioning is in the room with Dave Rennie, Neil Barnes, Andrew Strawbridge. Am I leaving anybody else? So yeah, Kent Curry is their talent ID development guy. He's in that room too. And then the physios are always coming by. So there's a lot of face-to-face time between all the management. And then the players are always stopping in, sitting down in the desk. So the amount of discussion time that takes place before and in between sessions is really huge. And I think that leads to the quality of on-field training or in-session training, whether it's mental performance or in the weight room session or doing recovery or whichever. So
in those on-field or weight room sessions, was there anything that just you kind of looked at and goes, oh wow, that's awesome, or that's quite different to what I've experienced elsewhere?
a lot of the what they do is of really high quality, and looking at that and then my time working with Rugby Canada, I saw that a lot of what we were doing with Rugby Canada is actually very similar to what was going on with the Chiefs. And you always kind of assume that your own program has a lot of major flaws. But there were so many similarities, and but at the same time, you can always do things better. So in terms of comparing the two, obviously Canada is not the Chiefs, or wasn't the Chiefs, and I'm not too sure what it looks like right now. But the time with Kieran Crowley, it makes me see like, wow, a lot of what Kieran was doing is actually really similar to what Dave Rennie was doing, and you can see that New Zealand influence on their coaches, and it makes sense why there's a lot of New Zealand coaches out around the world coaching international or professional sides. It's because they do an extremely great job, and it's not because of their accent, but it's actually because they're very competent and good people who understand sport and come from that background. I'm not sure if I got off task with that question there, Andy.
It's all good. But what about like when you're looking at a skills session? I'm really interested. We had Nick Hill on a couple episodes back, and he's a big fan of teaching game for understanding, and New Zealand's got a really big TGFU focus in a lot of their sports across the country. Did you see? When we're talking skills coaching, was there a lot of skills in isolation being done, or was it more a lot of organised games and things like that? What did you kind of witness there?
So when it comes to the New Zealand sides and the Chiefs, I think what they do extremely well is set up their learning environments that are world class for any sport or any actual learning environment. If you were to compare it to a university lecture room, the Chiefs training sessions are probably 100 times more efficient at having learning outcomes than any lecture I sat in. So it's highly skilled coaches who understand how athletes learn, and they do it through teaching games for understanding. So there's a lot of games that they play to really hammer down those skills. So Straws at the Chiefs is a world-class skills coach. So when you look at their offloads or just their kicking game or any skills really, that they spend a lot of time in between sessions working on those things. So actually that was one of the things I'd do when I was observing the sessions, is just help with kicking with Tuera Carballo, just catch his kicks and shag him back for him, or with Sam Kane, just help him do the basic simple passing that we do with the U16s, just one hand off the deck and just focus on all the proper mechanics. But then they take those things and they incorporate them all the time. So if you look at double loop learning, for example, I think so double loop learning, it's not just executing the skill, but then analyzing it afterwards. So the first loop is skill execution and doing it, and then there's that feedback loop, the second loop of actually thinking about what you've done and why was it successful, how could you do it better. So just that extra thought. So if I'm passing with one of those players, you can see that they do one pass and then they reflect on how it was done, or they ask me a question and then you get a little bit of feedback. But every pass, it's that there's deep thought and reflection put into it, and that so it's just a habit that they've done and developed over time, and I think they developed that in high schools in New Zealand, and then they bring it to the Chiefs and then All Black level, and then it's just one reason why they are so far ahead from anywhere else. And you hear it all the time that their skill development is king, but I think it comes back to that reflective piece, so that they can not just go through the motions, but they're always getting better because they're doing that double loop learning.
Great, awesome. And you mentioned the New Zealand culture, how that you really saw a lot of evidence in that across all teams and organisations you visited. What were some examples of that?
You can see it. It really came out through my interviews with the Chiefs, and before going down, I met with Steve Lancaster, my old boss, who's in charge of provincial rugby.
Yeah.
So I did a few discussions with New Zealand rugby, and it just comes out through time and time again. I spoke with the Waikato Mitre 10 Cup coaches as well, and talking with Tawera Kerballo about his time at Hamilton Boys School. So through that, you can just really identify how sport's so important to the culture. And culture is not a term I like throwing around loosely. I think it's overused often, but it's just a way of life or so for New Zealand. It's what they're passionate about. It helps develop their character. So it's all these values that are present in New Zealand. And I think my discussion with Alex Bowman at High Performance Sport New Zealand really drew that out. Kiwis are really competitive people. They love sport, they love games, and they love winning. They love hard work. That probably comes from a farming background.
Yeah.
And that, and they're sensitive to other cultures and accepting, and they work really well alongside each other. So you see that expressed in their sports, and they celebrate one another. So I just think that Kiwis are fantastic individuals. As a whole, you always come across the odd prick, but they filter those kind of people out in these environments,
Absolutely.
and it's really challenging to find. So and that goes right down to when you're 5 years old, and these values are ingrained into you to do a good job, to work hard, to be a good teammate, to help clean up. So it's not just talk and things that you hear about, but it's actually taught and led by example by the All Blacks going back to their old clubs. And who wouldn't want to follow that example of having an All Black show up at your mini rugby session or at your club or high school, and they're help picking up garbage and helping carry the bags and all that. And if you're in sessions in Canada, that's not first nature for a lot of players to even go and do that. So, but they're, the national players, they're taught those things, but they weren't taught those from the time they're 5, so they might forget because it's just not complete habit for them. Whereas it's pretty common in New Zealand.
Cool, awesome. All right, so you obviously witnessed some pretty high performing environments in your time there. Often, people in the amateur game might think that comes with a high price tag and a lot of gadgets like GPS and those kind of things. What do you think some of the main takeaways could be from what you saw there that a club coach could implement tomorrow from your experiences?
Yeah, pretty much everything you would witness at a Super Rugby franchise. I'd say 90% of it you could implement it for free at your own club. And that's why New Zealand is so far ahead. So those cultural pieces, like start with your mini rugby programs, your junior programs, and teach those values that are important for winning, for keeping a group of players together to work hard. And it's just being a good person. That's got a zero price tag on it.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Everybody's going to have a better time. They're going to show up to more training sessions. They're going to put in higher quality work. They're going to be reliable. They'll be committed. They'll have higher levels of integrity, and they'll enjoy it more. So I think that's probably the first thing that is important. The don't let, like, set some standards and let them know that what's acceptable, but you don't just let them know by telling them what is acceptable, but you can ask questions and come together as what those things are for your environment. So if you go down to these Super Rugby franchises, and I've been fortunate enough to have been to the Crusaders, the Blues, and now the Chiefs. And there's if you go to their facilities, they're not flash by any means. The Crusaders had a really tiny weight room. Not the most advanced equipment, just really substandard if you were in the UK. And same with the Chiefs, like, it's nothing fancy. They've got nice training fields, and they've got places to hang your boots, and they've got places for people to be. And so anywhere where you get good people, you can have a good program. You don't even need a building, or you need a training pitch, but that's pretty much all you need. So bouncing around again in your answer here, some other things that you can implement. It's just getting the basics done well. For a club coach, say in Canada. So you need to look at the physical, technical, tactical, mental side of things, and then develop your environment to have those outcomes for whatever goals and those pillars or whatever domains that you want to achieve. So for physical, I think that's a huge area for most clubs where they could improve. So the way that the Super Rugby teams have gone to now is really simple test. They use a Bronco test for most of the Kiwi sides, and it's just a 1,220 meter shuttle, 20 back, 40 back, 60 back. Do that 5 times, and that's just a really quick and easy way to assess your aerobic fitness.
Sounds horrible.
It's not that bad. It's 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
no, I saw your video on that, and I'll put that up in the show notes too. Great video of the Chiefs guys doing a Bronco, and as soon as I saw that, I rolled that out with my junior side as well.
Awesome.
And they love it.
Good, and that's what I do that every week with my club, and I often do it at every session. So we can, what you measure, you're going to get better at, and you probably hear that quite often. So the Bronco, it's not so high intensity that it screws your whole session up, but there's a high correlation between your aerobic ability and your anaerobic ability in rugby, and it's an 80-minute game, so you gotta be fit to play rugby at a good standard. So at a Bronco, if you're approaching 5 minutes, you're probably going to be a really capable club player in terms of fitness. So no, the Bronco is so easy, and I picked that up in 2014 when I was at the Crusaders, and used it a lot with the Canadian 7s and 15s guys, and it's just easy to throw into a session and carry on and get a little bit of extra training volume in, as well as to just, an easy assessment to see where you're at without demolishing somebody. So that's why I don't really care for the yo-yo so much, is it's harder to set up. You need the track where somebody might be able to hear. You might not have batteries. You might not have a proper stereo system. And then also the turns in the yo-yo, it's you're pretty much sprinting by the end. And then so for a prop who's 120 kilos, the amount of momentum that player has to stop, the amount of force that goes through their lower body to make that turn, maybe their aerobic system isn't the problem, but really the ability to start with that massive frame. So I think that the Bronco, it's more forgiving for those bigger players to do that. So anyway, those are a few of the reasons why I like the Bronco. So I highly recommend, if every club in Canada ran the Bronco, we'd improve our fitness levels across the country probably 40%. Just because you know where you need to be, and then you're doing it week in, week out. And then when the preseason starts up, oh shoot, I got to get my Bronco, say I'm a prop, to 5 minutes and 20 seconds. So then you've got something to work towards. Whereas I think a lot of players don't really have a clue where they need to get to, or they think, oh crap, I don't have a yo-yo track to run. So you can just go out to the pitch, use the 22 meter, and 40 meter, 60 meter. Do that 5 times. You got a stopwatch. You're set. So
Yeah, awesome, cool. Okay, well, it sounds like you took away a bunch from your trip there, so that's great. And I mentioned in the introduction, strength school, little project you've got going on. Can you talk a little bit about that? How it started? What are some of the goals? And if people
yeah,
want to find more information out, how they get in contact with you?
I probably had the idea for strength school probably about 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I was always so busy with other things, and it came through basically my train of thought where that the players when I was working privately, the players that I actually wanted to work with didn't actually have any money at all, and they had no clue how to train, and nobody to teach them how to train. And this is the physical, technical, tactical, mental side of things as well. So I just thought, man, there's such a gap for athletes, and they've got nowhere to go really unless they're fortunate enough to kind of fall into a system where there's good people who understand these things. So I wanted to develop something that could teach players how to train properly and take them through the excellent stages of long-term athletic development. So train to train, how to train, how to compete, and then how to win. So if you can take them through that, then on all those measures, not just physical, then we'd be set. So I'm just really at the really early stages of actually putting it together. I kind of rolled it out earlier than I'd wanted to, but just based on requests from some groups. So anyway, it's pretty really at the beginning stages of it. But that's what I really want to achieve, is to give players an avenue for moving on in sport in a proper way that doesn't cost them a ton of money. So how that'll work is offering cost-effective strength and conditioning programming that I'll write or other professionals will write based on certain needs and certain levels. So that's what I've been working on so far. And a lot of the programs that I'm using right now are ones that I've had great success with, the 7s and 15s programs, as well as working with National League lacrosse players also. So some elements from that. And then where I'd like to go is give back to our national players. So I've had one camp where I like to put money back in our national players' pockets who give so much for so little. So if there's a way where I can give back to those players who are just phenomenal people, then awesome. I'm really happy to do that. So Hubert Biden's one of those guys who's been a friend of mine since I was probably 16. So he's just an awesome guy. So I always want to give back to everybody. So I've grown up right across this country. I was fortunate enough to live from St. John's, Newfoundland, right to Victoria, BC, and born in Saskatchewan. So I've got a passion for Canadian sport and specifically rugby. So I'm not a homer to any specific province, but I just really care for the people that, sport can make a huge difference in their lives. So just to backtrack a little bit with strength school, the reason I wanted to reach out quickly once I moved on from my last role is when I was when we would intake players who were newly carded, they were probably about 2 years off, physically, technically, tactically, mentally, from where they needed to be to compete at the international level. So you'll hear it a little bit now from just for interviews and the lack of depth in our programs. So, we don't need to point fingers at anybody specifically, but it just shows that there's a huge gap that needs to be addressed. So I'm just outside and it's starting to rain. I'm trying to hide under a tiny balcony.
It's very Vancouver.
Yeah, it's beautiful out, but it's just starting to rain. I'm safe now. So for example, there was an interview by Anscombe and then Damien McKenzie. They had identified that they don't have the depth that they'd like to have, and that's exactly what we experienced. For the last decade, it's not there. So, and the head coaches, they've got their players in Victoria that they need to really focus on. So we really need to work with the regions and work right across the country to come up with solutions. And there's good people like yourself. Quebec's doing an awesome job, I think, in many areas. So just if we can all work together and have the players' interests at mind, and let our egos go aside and not say bad things about people behind their back. But if you got some criticism for somebody, why not go to that person and say, you know what, I think this is what I actually think. Can you tell me why you're doing it? And then can I help you get better in that gap, or just work alongside each other? So there's, we need to be better people probably, and just work together towards a common goal. And I think there's a lot of passionate people with common goals that kind of let that passion go in unproductive ways sometimes.
Yeah, I agree, and that's awesome, man. The concept of strength school, and that you're wanting to give back to those national players who they sacrifice careers, they sacrifice time with families and friends and that kind of stuff. So that's amazing, man. And I'll put the website up on the show notes so people can check it out, and I'll put your Twitter details up as well. So if people want to reach out to you and contact you.
Awesome.
All right. Well, we always end the show with the same 4 final questions. When you were a kid growing up, who was one of your favourite rugby players going around?
I've never told this guy this, but
Here it is.
Here it is. He's probably not the type who'd listen to a podcast either. But Morgan Williams was probably the halfback I used to watch when I was a kid.
Sure.
And he was from Esquimalt a little bit, but he was a bit nomadic as well. So Esquimalt and Victoria is where I started playing rugby. So he was one of those guys that I'd watch play for Canada, and I really loved his edge. So
for sure.
I never bleached my hair blonde though. So
it's still
so
time.
he was one of those guys. Jules van der Westhuizen was another.
Absolutely.
And then just in my older years, I realized that Mr. T wasn't actually an athlete, but more of an actor. But when I was little, I wanted to be a boxer because of Mr. T.
Club Lang.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely. Yeah. Rocky 3, one of the greatest. Cool. And what about now? Who's some of the favourite rugby players going around?
I really enjoy to watch Dane Coles.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal athlete and skill set. We'll just leave it at him. There's many others, but he's probably impressed me the most over the last few years, and just the way a hooker can play.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's changing the game for sure. And the fact that with the Kiwis 1-3-3-1 structure, that with him on one wing and Kieran Reid on the other, it's pretty daunting. And he's got all the physical attributes to do it. Exactly. Yeah, awesome. And what about coaches? Who's a high profile coach that you look up to and like what they're doing?
I'll acknowledge Matt Barr. You don't often get somebody behind the scenes, but he's been a professional mentor to myself and been huge in my development. And it's things in as a strength and conditioning coach in rugby, you're not just dealing with the physical side of things, but when the coaches are traveling, or when the other leaders are away, the strength coach in rugby is often in charge of setting a daily schedule and all the administrative items, and development and talent ID, and it's not just in the weight room. So he's played a huge role in guiding me through those things, and he's always been accessible at any time for me. So he's one of them. Dave Rennie, he's world class, and I expect him to probably land some of the biggest coaching roles in the world eventually, which he's already doing fantastic. Yeah. But the way he questions players in a way where he draws out that learning from within them without having to tell them what to do, but he asks them why and how's it going, and just players, the way they respond to him and respect him, and then the way he manages staff as well and gets the most out of them. So that technical leadership side of things, he's phenomenal. And then the coaching aspect, and as an educator, He's a bartender as well, so he can sing a million tunes. So he's just an all-around good dude. So he's
Awesome.
and just a great host as well. So just
That's
phenomenal.
cool.
So
Yeah.
I expect good things in Glasgow from him.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be exciting watching there, and I think Cockerell's gone to Edinburgh too, so it's going to be a real clash of a couple of titans there in the Pro 12.
For sure.
Yeah, awesome. And last question: what about a grassroots coach who's working really hard and you feel deserves some recognition?
Yeah, well, the first thought I have is as Mother's Day is coming up, to all the wives and moms out there who take on a much more bigger role as a parent or wife and give up a lot so that these men can go out and coach, or women, maybe it's a husband or whatever, but no, specifically the women. My wife's phenomenal. We got 4 kids, and I don't know, she's just amazing. So I wouldn't be able to coach at all if it wasn't for her. So
that's great.
so she's very supportive, and she sees how I've been able to give back to a lot of these young men, and she should get 90% of the credit for that. So all the women out there, moms, thank you. And then secondly, out here in Coquitlam, grassroots coach is Michael Collins.
Okay.
He's a huge reason for the success and growth of the United Rugby Club. He's been there from the beginning, and he coaches at every level. He's coached minis, and then most recently over the last 5 years, he's gone really heavily in U16s, U18s, U20s, and senior men. And at the United Rugby Club, the first 15, the average age is 22 years of age.
Oh, wow.
And there's only about 5 to 8 players that are over the age of 25. And really that's his dedication over a decade of coaching at those age grade levels and following them up to coaching, to playing at the men's level. And he's all these players can tackle with ferocity, and they're so well connected, and their character is phenomenal. So Michael Collins is look for great things to come out of Coquitlam, where I am right now, and a lot of that credit is to Michael Collins.
All right, well that's awesome, and that's a great way to finish off the show, and respecting those people, and definitely a shout out to my wife as well. We've got 3 kids, and coaching a bunch of rugby teams, and she played rugby for a good part of her life as well, and she loves the sport as well, but she's also extremely understanding and supportive for what I'm going after and stuff like that. So appreciate your time coming on the show, mate, and hopefully we can talk face to face sometime soon.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Andy, and thanks to your wife as well, because without her, we wouldn't be doing this right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. All right, mate. Well, appreciate it again, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Andy. Bye-bye.
Right. Cheers, mate. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Rugby Coaches Corner podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review via iTunes and keep listening for the next episode. You can also follow us on Twitter at RugbyCoachSCNR or via the website at therugbycoachescorner.com. Until next time, keep sharing ideas to make the game better.